I've been talking about mail-in voting for a long time. It's really destroyed our system. It's a corrupt system, and it makes people corrupt even if they aren't by nature. But they become corrupt. It's too easy.
So he will not go gently into that good political night. It is a Trumpian rage, rage, rage against the dying of the light. Look, the United States is facing an historic challenge. Will a sitting president accept the results of an election and concede power or not? What if Donald Trump does not? Has his allegations of electoral fraud, without evidence, we should say, damaged the U.S. system? Let's find out and get some perspective from John Bolton. John Bolton, of course, was Donald Trump's former national security advisor. He's also the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations under George W. Bush. And he, of course, is the author of the best-selling book, The Room Where It Happened. Welcome back, Ambassador Bolton, to this program. Good to see you, sir. Let's start with your reaction when you watched Donald Trump's speech in the White House, where he alleged the election was being stolen. There was mass electoral fraud. He did not provide any evidence of that, and he is going to fight this. What was your reaction?
Well, the comments are disgraceful. Look, any candidate has the right to take available of whatever legal remedies they may have if they think the election is being corrupted in any regard. And Trump's, just like any candidate, has a right to do that. So far, however, all we've heard from him and his surrogates is a lot of heated political rhetoric. There's no real evidence that's been presented. Two cases have already been thrown out, one in Michigan, one in Georgia. Others that are threatened to be brought don't have much substance to them. We'll see what the recounts or contests in the different states provide. But the fact is, it's just contrary to basic constitutional values to have the President of the United States attack the fundamental integrity of the country's election system. And that's basically what Trump is doing. It's another case of Trump not being able to distinguish his personal interest from the national interest.
Ambassador Bolton, what would happen, and I don't know if this has ever happened, what would happen if he just does not concede? He does not accept the result, and he just says, no, this is a fraud. What does Joe Biden do?
Well, Trump's personal reaction really doesn't make any difference. There's no obligation for him to say anything. There's no obligation to concede. It's a matter of personal and professional courtesy. I'm not waiting around for Trump to display that. But he can deny the reality as long as he wants. The only real question, he could, for example, decide not to accompany Joe Biden to the inauguration on January the 20th. It's been a long time since that happened. It's an act of remarkable discourtesy, but that's in line with Trump as well. The only issue is whether he resists leaving or something like that. I don't see that, although I think the speech from Thursday night demonstrates there's nobody at the White House now telling him what the truth is. And somebody from the outside is going to have to come in to tell him at some point here.
His son, Don Jr., has used words like war. You've seen, there's a pretty frightening moment here. There's a big movement that this is all a conspiracy against him and against the Republicans. But you've spoken out that it's time for Republicans to speak out, but very senior Republicans, Ted Cruz, Lindsey Graham, have gone on TV and are supporting the president's view of all this. What does that tell you about what needs to happen in the Republican Party, or what is happening in that party?
Well, look, I've said how we deal with this is a character test for the Republican Party, and I mean that in a very deep sense. I think after the election really is finally resolved, the party needs to have an intense conversation with itself about the direction to follow. And I don't think following it down the Trump line is the way to go. I know the president has a lot of supporters who are very loyal to them. Honestly, I hope in the future we can keep them voting Republican because he has brought new people into the party. The rate of, unbelievably to some, the rate of Hispanic American support for the party is up at very high levels. But his approach to politics, his anything goes, no rules apply, I can do whatever I want to do approach is wrong. His approach that everything is personal, You're either with Trump or against Trump.
Right.
He tolerates no dissent, and he tweets when he doesn't like it. That's unacceptable.
Let me ask you, you're a national security advisor. Your job is to look at instability and be concerned to see things through the lens of security. How dangerous a period of time is this in the United States in terms of its own system when you see a president who you work with for so long attack the system like this? What's the national security implications?
Well, I'm worried about two things. I'm worried that once he internalizes the reality that he's lost, he could do a lot of damage inside the government. You know, people were speculating if he wins re-election, he'll fire this cabinet secretary or that senior official in the Justice Department and so on, which, you know, if he were re-elected, he can change his government. That's within his constitutional right. I'm worried now that he's lost. He's going to start firing people to show his dissatisfaction. And I think that people will, the longer term risk is that people around the world will misinterpret Trump's actions for actions that really represent the United States. I believe very strongly Trump is an anomaly, he's an aberration. Our friends around the world, and maybe even more important, our adversaries around the world, should not take Donald Trump to be a predictor for how the United States will behave in the future.
We see so much distrust. I mean, Donald Trump has hot-wired distrust. There's conspiracy theories, no trust of anything, the electoral system, Dr. Fauci, you name it. What long-term impact could that have on the U.S. system? There are tens of millions of people out there that are so angry and they don't trust anybody.
Look, it's a serious problem, and Trump has caused a lot of it. Unfortunately, he's not the only cause of the problem. And I think the solution, I hate to sound like Miss Goody Two-Shoes here, but the solution is to move away from Trump's approach and the approach of many others that when they disagree with somebody, they attack the person. They don't discuss the policy differences, they attack the person. They demean them, they belittle them, they call into question their integrity. We've got to stop that. It's okay to disagree with somebody. I disagree with Joe Biden. I think he's wrong a lot, but I don't doubt his integrity or his patriotism.
You and I have been good enough to have these conversations over the last couple of months, Ambassador, and I've asked you a lot about working with Trump, and a lot of people ask me, does Ambassador Bolton regret now, in retrospect, working for Donald Trump, working with him, given what's happened now? Do you ever just think, man, I missed the boat on that one?
No, quite the contrary. These displays that we've seen from Trump in the hours and days after the election were what I saw almost every day I was in the White House. And what that says to me is that, that Americans of good conscience, to try and help keep the country on the right track, to try to persuade the president to do the right thing, were correct, as I was, and as many others were too, to work in his administration and try and keep things on an even keel. So I don't regret it. The only thing I regret is that I wasn't more successful.
Well, we appreciate you joining us, as always, Ambassador Bolton. What a fraught time in U.S. history. We'll see where this train is headed. Thank you, sir.
Thanks for having me.